Hi guys, and welcome to this video. So this will be my first video in the PHP series. I figured while I'm making the MySQL series, it would make sense for me to make this PHP series since PHP is often related to MySQL and relational databases. So in this course we're going to be talking about PHP as a programming language in general. It would be good for you if you're already familiar with another programming language or at least the basic concepts of programming, but even if you're not, you should be able to follow along just fine. So after this first video, why should you ever want to learn PHP? So PHP often gets a bad reputation in the community. If you're talking to developers, many of them will say, well, don't learn PHP, it's an old language, it's outdated, it's ugly, and so on. And yes, some of these things may be true. It is kind of old and it is kind of ugly, I guess, when you start typing it. But at the end of the day, it's still very relevant, it's still very popular, and it gets the job done, and you can get paid for work in PHP. So on my right hand side, I have written a few topics that we're going to discuss in this video in terms of learning PHP and why should you ever want to learn it. So first off, like I already said, PHP is very relevant still. And I guess that here we can connect the first dot with the fifth dot and the third dot. Why? Well, maybe you've heard of Wordpress. And Wordpress is one of the leading web frameworks that are used to build websites. We'll talk about more what a framework is in the future, but for now it's just some technology that's built in another technology to make our life easier as a developer. So since WordPress is built in PHP and WordPress is very popular, many small business owners and even bigger companies use WordPress-based sites, and that in terms means that they often need developers to handle their application or web application needs. So yes, PHP is still very relevant, and besides WordPress, there are dozens of older sites that are still maintained in PHP, even some newer ones that are made in PHP. It's just that PHP is so handy, it just gets the job done. It's not too bloated, it's easy to maintain, and it's relatively easy to write it. The second dot is that it has a huge community. So yes, since it's still popular and it's growing to this day, it has a huge community from 95, I think, up to today. So when a programming language has a big community, that means that you have a lot of developers and other programmers that are using this same language that you are using, that is PHP. So you can easily communicate with these programmers to ask them for advice on some problems that you're encountering during coding and so on. So that is why PHP is still a great programming language. The third one, like I already mentioned, is that it supports a lot of popular frameworks, and I guess the two of the biggest ones are WordPress and Laravel. Laravel is a bit different than WordPress. I'm not gonna bother you this time with it. But again, maybe you heard of it. Also, you may have heard of something like CodeIgniter. So these are all frameworks that are built in PHP and are used to this day to build new websites, new web applications, and so on. The fourth dot is that it just gets the job done. So like I already said, it's easy to write, it's easy to maintain. I guess that as long as the application doesn't get too big, and I mean enterprise big, PHP can cover it. I read some posts a few days ago online where programmers wrote that PHP had security issues back in the day, but today all of these issues are fixed. So even in that sense, PHP is a good technology to pick to build your site and also as a programmer to write it. And the last dot is that there are a lot of jobs available online for PHP, especially in the freelancer industry. So like I already mentioned, a lot of small business owners and small companies use WordPress sites to present their products, their company, whatever. So oftentimes they need small fixes on their site, small add-ons to be added, and these sorts of things. So for all this stuff to get done, they need a developer, and they need a PHP developer to do that. So that's where freelancers come into play. But don't be fooled, there are still big applications there that are built in PHP and that are still maintained to this day. And even a lot of the new applications are built in something like Laravel or CodeIgniter. So all in all, there are a lot of jobs available in the market. It kind of depends on the location where you're at. So I guess that not as much PHP jobs are available in the USA compared to Europe or Eastern Europe or some other part of the world. But still, work can be found in PHP relatively easily. And to sum up all of this info, I guess the final conclusion is that even if you're an experienced developer, an experienced programmer, or if you're just starting out, PHP is very handy to know. Because as a beginner, you can pick it up relatively easily because it's not a low-level language, something like C or C++. It doesn't have these ugly pointers and references as much as these languages that I already mentioned have. So that would be a good starting point for you. And if you're an experienced developer, then it would be good for you to know PHP because maybe at some point you would want to write a small script in PHP or to build a small site or a small app in PHP. And compared to something like Java or .NET, PHP is much more lightweight and you would get the job done much more quickly. So yeah, that's it for this video. In the next video, I'll be talking about basic concepts in PHP, how it works, and some stuff that you need to know before you start learning PHP. So I'll see you in the next one.